The fluorescent light above evidence shelf 9 be popped and went out, and the whole property room went gray-green like old teeth. I slapped my badge against the reader again. Denied. Again. The little red light blinked like it was enjoying itself. I've been the midnight evidence custodian for 3 weeks, which is a stupid way to say I babysat other people's worst days in a concrete basement while the rest of the precinct slept upstairs. I took the shift because I needed the money and because quiet sounded like a vacation after my divorce. Quiet was a lie. It's never quiet in a building full of sealed boxes and paper bags and plastic tubs that all smell faintly of latex, mildew, and old panic. The first thing you learn down there is the air has layers. There's a normal basement stink, wet cement, mop water, metal, and under it there's this faint sweetness you don't notice until you've been in a morgue once and your brain files it away as a warning label. Not enough to gag. Just enough to make you swallow more than you need to. They didn't train me. Not really. They gave me a key card, a clipboard, and a set of shelves with letters and numbers like it was a fucking supermarket. Just follow chain of custody. My day supervisor said, like, chain of custody is a religion that keeps demons out. Don't lose anything. Don't touch anything you don't have to. The rules weren't in the binder. The rules were taped inside the locker they assigned me. Not on the door. Inside, like a secret you only deserved after you agreed to be trapped down there. The paper was wrinkled, thumbed soft like it had been unfolded too many times by shaking hands. Somebody had put clear tape over the corners, like that would keep it from fraying into nothing. Property room night shift. Read this or get someone else killed. Rule 1. Don't whistle. Not even to yourself. If you hear whistling, hold your breath and count to 30. If you can't, bite your tongue until you taste blood. Rule 2. If a camera flash goes off in the dark, do not look for the source. Turn the lights on first. If the lights don't respond, shut your eyes and back into the break room. Rule 3. Never open a bag labeled wet after 12:15 a.m. If it leaks, double bag it without gloves. Yes, it burns. Do it anyway. Rule 4. If you find an item that wasn't on your intake list, don't log it. Put it in locker 3, close it, and write miscount on the clipboard. If locker 3 is open already, go upstairs and wake a supervisor. Don't be a hero. Rule 5. At 3:07 a.m., the intercom will play a recording of you. It will say something you didn't say. Do not correct it. If you speak during the recording, you'll teach it your voice. Under that, stuck half under the tape like an afterthought, was a yellow post-it with blocky handwriting. The ink had bled a little, like it had been pressed by a sweaty thumb. If you count them, they count you. I laughed when I read it the first time. Not a real laugh. More like my throat coughed up a sound because my brain didn't have a box for rules that sound like a campfire story. Cop culture is 90% dead serious faces hiding dumb shit. I figured this was some old-timers hazing ritual, like putting a rookie on snipe patrol. Then Shelf 9B happened. I was alone that night too, running intake on a couple of burglaries and a domestic that ended with a guy bleeding into a towel and screaming that his wife had hidden the real knife. Normal trash. The kind of normal where you can pretend bad things happen in clean categories, tagged and bagged and stored until a judge says otherwise. My intake list was clipped to the board. Julie Bake. Crowbar. Phone with a spiderweb screen. Set of keys with a novelty bottle opener shaped like a skull. A damp hoodie that smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. I was halfway through scanning barcodes when the light above 9B popped and the reader denied me. And for a second my brain did this weird blank thing, like I couldn't remember what items were supposed to exist. You ever have that moment where you look at a word you know, like door, and suddenly it's just shapes? Like your mind got tired and let go? That was me, standing there with my pen hovering, forcing myself to remember that the world still had order, still had rules that made sense. Top, 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 soft, polite, like fingernails on particle board. My skin tightened so fast it felt like somebody yanked a sheet over my bones. Rule 4 wasn't the one. Not yet. It was the post-it. If you count them, top, 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 from inside the shelving. Shelf 9B wasn't special on paper. It held boxes from cases that were closed years ago. Old property, old evidence, things that didn't get returned because the owner disappeared, or the owner didn't want it back, or the owner didn't exist anymore. It was where you put the leftovers of someone else's life. I didn't answer. I didn't even clear my throat. That urge hit anyway. Automatic politeness, like my mouth wanted to say hello because someone was knocking. I swallowed it hard enough my throat burned. Top, top, top. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was patient. Like whatever was doing it knew time wasn't a problem down here. I slid sideways into the next aisle, forcing my eyes onto tags and case numbers like they were Bible verses I could recite to keep safe. My mouth went dry, then wet, then dry again. I gripped the clipboard so hard my fingers cramped. Top, top, top. It followed. Not closer exactly, just still there. Still in my peripheral awareness, the way you still feel someone staring at you, even if you refuse to look. I kept moving. Slow. Controlled. Like fear wasn't trying to turn my knees into pudding. And then, the camera flash went off. No click. No whine. Just a brutal white burst that turned the aisle into a frozen photo and then ripped it away. For half a second, in that stolen frame, I saw a shape where there should have been empty air between shelves. Thin shoulders, head tilted wrong, something wet on its hands that shone like oil. Every animal instinct I had screamed look. Identify, threat assessment. Rule 2 wrapped around my wrists like handcuffs. I snapped my eyes shut so hard it hurt and turned toward where the break room should be, walking on memory. Palms out, fingers splayed. The concrete under my shoes felt slick, like somebody had spilled something that never dried right. My shoulder hit the break room door frame. I kept going until my back slapped the vending machine. Metal rattled. Something dropped inside with a clunk and then rolled slow, like it was deciding whether to stop. I didn't open my eyes. I stood there with my head tilted down, sucking air through my nose, counting like numbers were a ladder. 1, 2, 3. A whistle slid through the basement. Low, almost playful. A tune I didn't recognize, but my body did. Goose flesh rose on my arms like the skin was trying to pull away. My stomach sank. My lungs started begging like they had their own mouth. Rule 1. I held my breath and counted harder, jaw clenched. 10, 11, 12. The whistling drifted closer. Right outside the break room door, like someone leaning in to listen to how scared I sounded. My throat spasmed. The urge to gasp was violent, like a punch from the inside. I clenched down until my teeth ached and I tasted copper. 20, 21, 22. The whistling stopped. Silence flooded in so hard it felt like pressure on my ears. At 30, I let myself breathe, slow and careful, like I was defusing a bomb with my lungs. Blood filled my mouth from where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek. Then, like nothing happened, the overhead lights hummed back to full brightness. I opened my eyes. The break room looked exactly as ugly as always. Scratched table, coffee stains that never came out, a calendar from 2 years ago with a golden retriever wearing a fake badge. The fluorescent bulb above the sink flickered once, like it wanted credit. On the floor, where the snack had fallen from the vending machine, was a plastic-wrapped pack of gum. I didn't buy gum. The machine didn't even sell gum. It sold stale chips and peanut butter crackers and those sad little honey buns that taste like sugar and regret. The pack was wet, not condensation, well, like it had been in someone's mouth. I stared at it longer than I should have. That's the thing about fear. You think it makes you run. Sometimes it makes you watch, because your brain is trying to prove you're not crazy. I didn't pick it up. I didn't even step over it. I backed out of the break room and kept my eyes on the floor until morning shift arrived, and then I did the classic coward move. I acted normal and hoped the building would forget I existed. It didn't. The next night, the locker had another page tucked behind the rules, like someone had added a footnote while I slept. Same paper, same wrinkled texture, but this one looked newer, like it hadn't been handled by as many shaking hands. You saw the flash. That means it saw you. Don't take anything home. Don't accept gifts. Don't look at old photos of yourself. The word gifts was in quotation marks, like whoever wrote it hated even calling them that. I held that page for a long time. I wanted to march upstairs and quit right then. I wanted to slam my key card on the counter and tell them to keep their haunted basement. But rent was rent. Child support was child support. I'd already been late once, and my ex didn't miss a chance to say, "See, this is why I left." I wasn't going to hand her a speech, so I stayed. I told myself the rules were some kind of elaborate hazing plus my own stress. I told myself the gum was a prank. I told myself the flash was a busted security camera. I told myself a lot of bullshit. Around 12:10 a.m., dispatch called down and told me somebody was bringing a biohazard bag from holding. Just sign for it. The dispatcher said, tone flat like he was ordering takeout. It's a quick drop. A deputy came down a few minutes later, heavy boots, heavy attitude. He had that look on his face like the basement owed him money. He didn't say hello. He didn't make eye contact. He held the bag out like it offended him. The bag was labeled in fat black marker. Vet. Sign, he muttered. I didn't reach for it right away. My eyes locked on the word. My brain did the math without my permission. 12:12. Rule 3. 12:15. The deputy's jaw flexed. What, you deaf? Fucking sign. Where's it from? I asked. He shrugged too fast. Cell cleanup. Guy puked. Blood. I don't know. It's nasty. He was lying. Not the kind of lying that's a story. The kind of lying that's a reflex to avoid responsibility. I took the clipboard, signed, and my pen squeaked too loud on the paper. The sound echoed. The deputy shoved the bag at me anyway. It radiated cold through the plastic. Not freezer cold. Grave cold. The kind that makes your fingertips ache even through latex. You ever wonder why nobody keeps this shift? The deputy said, almost conversational, like he was proud. I forced my voice steady. You ever wonder why you're down here right now? His eyes flicked up sharp. For a second, I thought he might swing on me. Then he just snorted like I wasn't worth it and walked out fast, not waiting for the door to lock behind him. I stood there holding the bag like it was alive. The knot at the top looked tied wrong, twisted by someone with shaking fingers. It wept a clear liquid from a seam I couldn't find, leaving a thin trail on the steel intake table when I set it down. My gloves stuck to the plastic. Rule 3 sat in my skull like a nail, never open after 12:15. The clock on the wall ticked like it was excited. I checked my phone. 12:12. 3 minutes. I didn't know why 3 minutes mattered. That was what made it worse. If someone had said, don't open it after 12:15 because the chemicals react, I could have rolled my eyes. But this was rules without reasons, and rules without reasons turn you into a dog that flinches on command. I grabbed a second bag to double bag it and be done. Just wrap it, seal it, quarantine it. No hito moves. That's when the seam split on its own. Not a tear. A clean opening, like the plastic decided it was done pretending. The smell hit me and almost dropped me. Sweet like fruit left in a hot car, layered with copper and something sour underneath like old sweat. Inside was not vomit. Inside was a stack of photographs, soaked and clumped together like someone drowned them. Polaroids. Their white borders smeared with fingerprints that looked too long. The film itself was tacky, like it hadn't finished developing even though the pictures looked old. I should have dumped the whole thing into the second bag and never looked. I didn't. Curiosity is a disease, and the first flash had already infected me. I slid one photo out with the edge of my glove. The picture showed the evidence room aisle. My aisle. The angle was low, like whoever took it was kneeling. The shelves rose up like cliffs. In the center of the frame was my back, me in my cheap uniform shirt, head turned slightly like I'd heard something. Except I didn't remember anyone taking a photo of me. My stomach tightened so hard I almost gagged. I flipped the photo over, written in thick black ink. Don't look up. I laughed, sharp and ugly. Fuck off. I whispered because anger feels better than fear, and I needed something that wasn't panic. The fluorescent lights above the intake table flickered. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quick stutter, Bright dim, bright like the building blinked. I froze with the photo in my hands. I didn't look up. Not yet. I slid the photo back into the bag, clumsy now, hands sweating inside the gloves. I shoved the whole wet mess into the second bag and sealed it. My phone buzzed. 12:15. The second the minute changed, the bag twitched. I'm not romanticizing it. It literally twitched like something inside flexed. The plastic rose and fell once, slow, like a chest taking a breath. The knot at the top tightened itself with a little squeal of rubber on rubber. Rule 3 wasn't about contamination. It was about containment. I backed away until my spine hit the wall and my breath came out thin, useless. From inside the bag came a sound like someone pressing their mouth against plastic and trying to whisper through it. Not words, just wet pressure like lips and tongues searching for a way through. I didn't open it. I didn't even get close. I grabbed a third bag because the rule said double bag if it leaks, and the bag looked like it wanted to do more than leak. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely pull the plastic open. And then my brain did the stupidest thing it could do. It remembered the line. If it leaks, double bag it without gloves. I yanked my gloves off. The cold immediately bit into my palms, sharp and intimate. The plastic burned like acid the second I touched it. Pain shot up my arms and turned my eyes watery. It wasn't chemical burn pain exactly. It was like my skin suddenly realized it had been lied to about what cold was. I wrapped the wet bag anyway. I sealed it anyway. My fingers slipped, tacky with whatever that clear fluid was. I shoved the whole thing onto the metal cart and rolled it fast to the quarantine locker, refusing to look at the label, refusing to read the case number, if there even was one. When I slammed the quarantine locker shut, the metal echoed, and the echo sounded wrong, like it came back a fraction of a second too late. My palms throbbed. The skin had gone pale and puckered, like it had been soaked too long in bath water. I stumbled into the break room and ran cold water over my hands. Cold because it was what was there. The water felt thick, like syrup, like it didn't want to wash me clean. When I lifted my hands, I saw faint lines in the pale patches of skin, like scratches that tried to be language. Not letters I knew, more like the star of letters, as if something was practicing. I blinked hard and told myself it was just damage, just my skin wrinkling. I told myself a lot. Around 1:40, I forced myself to do a routine shelf check. Walk the aisles, confirm locks, make sure nothing's obvious. Boring. Comforting. The kind of job detail you can hide inside. My flashlight beam slid over boxes, tags, case numbers. My boots squeaked on the concrete. Somewhere overhead, a pipe pinged as it cooled. And for a second, I almost relaxed. Then I turned into aisle 9. Shelf 9B was wrong. It didn't have doors. It was just shelves bolted to the floor. But the space between the stacks had widened, just enough that the darkness behind the boxes looked like a mouth opening. And something new sat on the floor in front of it. A camera. Old school. Chunky. One of those instant cameras with a wide mouth for film. It looked soaked, but not with water. Dried dark streaks crusted around the shutter button and the grip. The strap looked like it had been chewed. It wasn't on my intake list. Rule 4 hit me so hard my stomach flipped. Don't log it. Put in locker 3. Locker 3 was down the hall. Small steel locker used for miscounts, whatever the hell that meant. I never opened it. I never wanted to. It always smelled like pennies and wet hair when I walked past. I should have used gloves. I didn't. I picked the camera up and my fingers slid on the dried gunk. It wasn't slick. It was tacky. Warm, like it had been under someone's shirt. Like someone had just held it to their chest. The moment I touched it, the overhead lights in aisle 9 went out again. Not a flicker. Out. The flashlight beam became the only thing in the aisle, a skinny cone of pale light. The darkness around it felt thick, like insulation. I swallowed a curse. My pulse hammered in my teeth. I could have dropped the camera. I could have backed away and gone upstairs and told someone. I could have done the smart thing. Instead, I hugged the camera against my chest and walked fast toward locker 3, eyes forward, refusing to look into the gaps between shelves. Pride is a disease too. Pride and denial are cousins. Halfway there, the intercom crackled. Not dispatch shatter, not a radio squawk. A hiss like an old cassette being played. Then my voice came through the speaker. My exact voice. Same tired flat tone. Same slight lisp on S sounds I hated about myself. "I'm sorry," it said. I stopped walking without meaning to. My skin went tight. The recording continued like it had been waiting for my attention. "I'm sorry," my voice repeated. "I didn't mean to. Rule 5, do not correct it." My throat tried to form words anyway. "That's not me. Shut the fuck up. I never said that." I clamped my mouth shut until my jaw trembled. The muscles of my neck ached. The intercom hissed again, and then my voice dropped lower, almost whispering, like it was confessing into someone's ear. I put her in the bag. My stomach turned to water. I never said those words in my life, but the speaker made them sound like a memory, like something I'd done and forgotten. The hiss snapped off. Silence. My legs started moving again on their own, fast now, like they wanted the locker between me and the shelves. Locker 3 loomed ahead. Its latch was already open. Already open. That wasn't possible. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even been down this hallway since the last time I walked past it holding my breath like it mattered. I stood there holding the camera, staring at that open mouth of dented steel. The air around it smelled like pennies and burnt hair and something sweet underneath, like candy left too long in a pocket with sweat. I thought about the rule. If locker 3 is open already, go upstairs and wake a supervisor. I thought about going upstairs, about seeing fluorescent hallway lights and hearing normal human footsteps and pretending I didn't live in a horror story. Then something inside locker 3 shifted. A soft slide, like a stack of photos settling, like paper dragging over paper. My chest went tight. I could hear my own heartbeat in the back of my throat. I should have called someone. I didn't. I shoved the camera into the locker and slammed the door so hard the metal rang. The latch clicked shut on its own. The padlock swung and tapped the steel twice like it was a knuckle. "Top! Top!" From somewhere deeper in the property room. Inside the shelves, fingernails answered. "Top, top, top." Not right next to me. Farther away. A ripple of it, like one tap woke another and another. My mouth went numb. I backed away and my heel caught on something, just the lip of the floor drain, and I almost went down. I caught myself on the wall, palms smearing over cold paint. I wanted to scream. I didn't. Sound felt like an invitation. I forced myself back to the intake table and made my hands work. Scan, log, cell, stack, move, be a machine. If I stayed busy, maybe I wouldn't have room to think. But the building was thinking for me. At 2:58, the lights in the entire basement dimmed. Not out, dimmed, like somebody turned the world's brightness knob down and left it there. The corners of the room got longer. The shadows under the shelves thickened. I kept scanning, eyes stinging from staring too hard. At 3:06, my phone buzzed with a low battery warning, even though it had been at 90% an hour ago. I ignored it. I didn't want my hands reaching for anything that wasn't evidence. At 3:07 on the dot, the intercom came on again. My voice, softer now, almost proud. "You're doing so good," it said. I stared at the speaker on the wall like it was a gun pointed at my face. "You're doing so good," my voice repeated. "Just look up. Just once. I want you to see what you did. Rule 5. Don't correct it. Don't speak." My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. He tasted bile. I tasted blood where I'd bitten myself earlier. The voice changed, no longer mine. A woman's, raspy and close, like she was whispering into the mic with her mouth full. "He keeps pictures," she said. "He keeps us wet so we don't crack." My eyes watered, not tears exactly. That hot sting you get right before you throw up. Then the intercom clicked off. Something dragged across the concrete behind me. Slow. Heavy, like a body being pulled by one ankle. The sound was what in a way dragging shouldn't be. It made my stomach do a hard clench. I didn't turn around. I grabbed the clipboard because my hands needed something that proved I was still me, and I walked fast toward the stairs. I didn't run. Running makes noise. Noise makes you feel hunted. Halfway to the stairwell, a camera flash went off behind me. This time there was a click. White burst. Snapshot. My eyes were open. For that half second, the property room became a photograph, and I saw everything the darkness had been hiding. The aisle behind me was filled with people. No, not people, shapes wearing people like bad coats, stacked between shelves like stored mannequins. Their faces were pressed sideways against cardboard boxes. Their mouths were open like they were trying to inhale air through paper. Their eyes were too shiny, like film. And in the center of it all, right behind me, was a man holding the old instant camera. He wore a property room uniform like mine, but it hung wrong on him, like the cloth was heavy with water. His hands were raw and white, skin peeled back in strips. His eyes were gone, just glossy black pits that reflected the flash. He smiled anyway, and his smile was full of photo paper. The light snapped back to dimness. The room swallowed itself again. I gagged. A sound tried to come out, and I strangled it. Then behind me, wet slap of footsteps, fast now. Fuck quiet. Fuck dignity. I bolted. I hit the stairs and took them two at a time, shoulder checking the door at the top. It didn't open on the first slam. Panic flared so hot my vision narrowed. I shoved again, and the door gave with a squeal like it hated letting me go. I stumbled into the upstairs hallway. The precinct was asleep, except for the night dispatcher behind bulletproof glass, watching something on his phone with earbuds in. He looked up like I'd interrupted his dinner. "Hey," he started, annoyed. I slammed my hands on the counter. "Look," I said, voice cracking. "What the fuck is this?" He leaned closer, and when his eyes focused on my palms, his face changed. Not confusion, not disbelief, recognition. On my palms, the pale burn lines had darkened. They weren't scratches anymore. They were letters, cramped and childish, like someone practicing to write on skin. Miscount, 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 over and over. Carved into me like the word itself wanted to be stored. The dispatcher didn't joke. Didn't ask if I'd been drinking. He just swallowed and reached for the phone on the desk like it weighed 100 pounds. His voice dropped low when he spoke, like he didn't want the walls to hear. "Yeah," he said into the receiver. "It's happening again." He hung up and looked at me through the glass like I'd stepped out of a quarantine zone. "You broke a rule?" he asked. I swallowed hard enough my throat clicked. I touched the camera. His eyes shut for a second, like he was bracing for a punch. "Go wash your hands," he said. "Hot water, as hot as you can stand. Scrub until it bleeds. Then sit. Don't go back down there. I already washed." "Hot," he snapped, and for the first time his voice showed teeth. "Do it. Now." I did what he said because when someone looks that scared and that sure, you don't argue. I went into the bathroom off the hall and turned the tap until steam rose. I jammed my hands under it and the heat felt like knives. I scrubbed with soap until my palms split, until blood ran thin and pink down the drain. The letters smeared but didn't disappear. They sank deeper like ink and scars. I sat on the bench outside the interview rooms, hands wrapped in paper towels that immediately spotted red. My heart wouldn't slow down. Every time I blinked, I saw that smile full of photo paper. Footsteps came down the hall. Not rushed, measured. A man in a white shirt and tie, too neat for 3 a.m., walked with a supervisor's badge clipped near his belt. He didn't look surprised to be there. He didn't look like he'd been woken up. He looked like he'd been waiting. The dispatcher stood when he saw him, quick and tense. The man glanced at my wrapped hands. He touched it. "That's what he said." The dispatcher replied, voice tight. "He's got you know." The man's eyes flicked up to my face. "Come with me." No introduction. No, "Are you okay?" Just a command like this was a procedure they'd run before. He led me into an interview room. Fluorescent lights. One bolted table. 2 chairs. The kind of room that makes you feel guilty even if you haven't done anything. He slid a folder across the table. "Open it," he said. My hand shook as I peeled the folder open. Inside were Polaroids. Dozens of them. A whole life documented in snapshots. Each one showed the property room from different angles. Each one had a different night custodian in frame. Tired, bored, unaware. And in the background of every photo, half hidden between shelves, was the same man holding the same instant camera, smiling. The newest photo sat on top, borders still bright white, like it had been spit out minutes ago. It showed me on the stairs, running, mouth open, eyes wide. On the back, in thick black ink, the words looked almost cheerful. "Welcome to inventory." The man in the tie watched my face like he was reading a chart. "You know who that is?" he asked. I forced my voice out. "No, he had a name," the man said. "Lowell Pierce. Worked property 30 years ago. Started taking souvenirs. Photos. Personal items. Pieces." My stomach rolled. Why the hell is this still? I stopped myself because I didn't have a word for it. Still here. Still active. Still hunting. The man tapped the folder once, like punctuation. Lowell drowned a girl. Bagged her. Hid her evidence down there. Thought if he kept it, it wouldn't spoil. Thought he could keep her like that forever. Then he killed himself in the river behind the precinct. My mouth went dry. The words didn't feel like information. They felt like a weight being lowered onto my chest. So why? I started. Because he didn't leave. The man cut in, and the calm on his face cracked enough to show anger underneath. Not at me. At the situation. At the fact he'd had to learn these words at all. And because every few years someone gets curious. Someone breaks a rule. Someone teaches it a new habit. He leaned forward. "Did it give you anything?" My first instinct was to say no. To lie. To protect myself the way you protect yourself from an abusive ex by not admitting you still have their hoodie in your closet. But my pocket felt heavier than it should have. I slid my fingers into it and touched something square. Cold. Photo paper. I hadn't noticed taking it. I hadn't felt it slide into my clothes. Like I'd been picked clean in the dark. The man's eyes sharpened. "Don't." I pulled out anyway. A Polaroid. Blanket first. Gray fog with a smear of light. Then, slowly like film developing, a face appeared. A woman. Bruised mouth. Swollen eyes. Hair stuck to her cheeks. She looked straight into the camera like she could see through time. And she smiled at me. Not happy. Not kind. Relieved. Like I'd finally done something right by noticing her. The man in the tie stood so fast his chair screeched. "Put that in locker 3, he snapped. I started, brain lagging behind fear. "Now," he said, and his voice didn't leave space for anything else. He came around the table and grabbed my wrist, not hard, but firm, like he didn't trust me not to drop it. "Listen to me," he said low. "That's not a gift. It's a hook. If it thinks you'll keep it, it will keep you." My throat tightened. I didn't ask for her. "Nobody asks," he said. "That's the point." He pushed the folder back into my hands. "Stand up. We're going down." My legs felt wrong walking back toward the basement. Like they wanted to fold. Like I remembered the drag sound and wanted to avoid it. The man opened the property room door with his key card, and it slid too easily, like the lock was grateful. The air down there felt warmer than before. Alive. And somewhere in the dark between shelves, something tapped once, slow and patient. The man in the tie didn't let go of my wrist until we were at the top of the basement stairs. He moved like he'd done this 100 times, like fear was something you kept in your pocket with spare keys. The stairwell smelled like mop water and old smoke. The fluorescent tube above us buzzed and spit a little light like it hated its job. "Listen," I said, because my mouth couldn't just sit there. "If this is a known thing, if you have a fucking folder, why is anyone down there at all?" He didn't look back. "Because the cases don't stop," he said. "And because day shift won't do it." That's not an answer. It is if you're the one assigning shifts. He swiped his key card at the basement door. The reader beeped green immediately, like it had manners for him. That pissed me off more than it should have. The denial up there had felt personal. The door opened and the basement breathed on us. Warmer, like it had been holding its breath for us. Like it was happy to have witnesses. I stepped through and my skin prickled. The dim lighting made everything look bruised. Even the white walls. Even the stainless steel table. The man in the tie, he still hadn't said his name, stopped in the entry, and listened the way cops listen at a closed door. Head tilted. Still, from deep inside the shelving, tap. Talp, talp, talp. Not frantic yet. Curious. Keep your mouth shut, he said without turning. Not whisper. Not mutter. Not what the fuck. Nothing. I'm not a child. He finally looked at me then. His eyes were calm in a way that wasn't comfort. It was the calm of somebody who's already watched a terrible thing happen and decided panic was a luxury. You're marked, he said. You don't get to be proud right now. That shut me up. Not because I agreed, because my palms throbbed under the paper towels like something alive was writing. He loosened his grip and moved first, slow, toward the property room hallway. He didn't carry a flashlight. He didn't need one. The overhead lights dimmed and brightened in small waves as he passed, like they were reacting to him. I followed and tried not to stare into the gaps between shelves. It's not easy to not stare. Your eyes want to map the room. They want to find exits. They want to keep you alive. The tapping stopped when we reached the hallway with the lockers. Locker 3 sat at the end like a dare. Its latch was open. The padlock hung sideways, not snapped, like somebody had opened it for us and left the door cracked in polite invitation. The smell hit me harder than before. Vet bennies, burnt hair, that sweet undertone like fruit rot. My stomach turned. My body remembered that camera flash frame like it had been branded. The man in the tie held his hand out. I hesitated. You take it, I said. It's your procedure. He didn't argue. He just plucked the Polaroid from my fingers like he was lifting a dead insect off a windowsill. The photo felt colder, leaving my hand like it was dragging heat with it. I watched his face as he looked at it. Just a quick glance. Not curiosity. Confirmation. He didn't turn it over. He didn't read the back if there was anything. He lifted it toward the open locker, and the air changed. Not a breeze. Not a temperature shift. A pressure shift. Like the basement leaned forward. The hairs on my arms stood up. My ears popped like we'd gone up a mountain in an instant. Somewhere behind us, deeper in the aisles, a single whistle note slid out, low and soft like someone trying a tone. My lungs reflexively wanted to inhale. Rule 1 flashed and my mouth went iron. I held my breath without thinking, not because I wanted to be brave, but because my body had already learned what that sound meant. The man in the tie paused, listening. His shoulders tightened. His jaw flexed like he was grinding something. The whistle didn't become a tune. It just hovered like bait. He pushed the photo into the locker anyway. The moment the paper crossed the threshold, the intercom crackled. The hiss had that old cassette sound, the ugly nostalgia of cheap tape. Then my voice came through the speaker, bright, cheerful, like it was smiling. Thank you, it said. Thank you for keeping her safe. The sentence landed in my chest like a weight. It wasn't a recording this time. It didn't have the flatness of playback. It had inflection. It had intention. The man in the tie didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He slammed the locker door shut. The latch clicked. The padlock swung up and snapped into place without his hands touching it. Talp, 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 talp. The sound erupted from the shelves like applause. Not just aisle 9. Everywhere, a ripple of tapping running through the property room, through the boxes and bags, like hundreds of fingernails drumming in approval. My breath broke on its own. I sucked air and tasted metal. My tongue was bleeding. I hadn't realized I'd bit it to keep from making sound. The man in the tie grabbed my upper arm hard enough to hurt and shoved me away from the locker. Move, he said, voice low and brutal. Now. We backed up fast, not turning around, feet sliding on the concrete. I kept my eyes on the floor so I wouldn't catch something in the gaps and lock up. The tapping chased us down the hall, getting louder the closer we got to the main room, like it wanted us to notice it. At the corner, the lights over aisle 9 popped and went out again. The darkness there felt thick enough to touch. The man in the tie stopped, still gripping my arm. Don't, he said, and I didn't even know what he meant until I realized my head was tilting. My eyes were trying to look into the dark on their own, like someone had pulled a string inside my skull. I forced my gaze down. What the fuck is it doing? I hissed, and instantly regretted it because he'd told me not to speak. His grip tightened. He didn't answer in words. He just shoved me harder toward the stairwell. We made it to the stairs. The tapping behind us softened, like a crowd settling after a show, like it was satisfied. At the door, he stopped again and looked back into the property room. The darkness in aisle 9 didn't look like an absence of light. It looked like an opening. The man in the tie pulled a small notebook from his pocket. Not a phone, not a report form. A beat-up little spiral notebook like a mechanic keeps. He wrote something fast. His hand didn't shake. "What are you writing?" I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't look at me. "Time," he said. What it said, what it tried. "Thank you for keeping her safe." He nodded once, like he was checking boxes. "You act like it's a person." His eyes flicked to my wrapped hands. "You act like it isn't." We went upstairs, and he shut the door behind us, holding it until the lock clicked like he didn't trust the building not to follow. The hallway lights up there looked wrong for a second, too clean, too bright, like a dream. My body didn't know what to do with normal. The dispatcher watched us from behind the glass, face pale, mouth tight. He lifted his phone like he was ready to call somebody else. The man in the tie held up a hand, palm out. "Not yet." The dispatcher lowered the phone, eyes on me. "You okay?" he asked, but his voice said he didn't mean okay as in fine. He meant okay as in still you. I wanted to say yes just to make someone breathe easier. Instead, I said no. The man in the tie finally introduced himself like it mattered now. "Lieutenant Harker," he said. "Internal logistics." That didn't mean anything to me. It sounded like a euphemism for "we clean up what the precinct refuses to admit." He jerked his chin toward the interview room. Back in. I followed him because what else was I going to do? Run into the night with my hands full of the word miscount? In the interview room, Harker shut the door and sat, but he didn't relax. He placed the spiral notebook on the table beside the folder of Polaroids. "I'm going to ask you questions," he said. "You're going to answer them straight. You're not going to make jokes. You're not going to act tough. If you do any of those things, you're going to die down there, and I'm going to have to file paperwork about it." I stared at him, rage flare hot, because fear was already using up my oxygen. "You talk like that's normal." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Normal is for people who don't work nights in this building." "Why does it say my voice?" "Because you spoke in there," he said. "You gave it something." "I barely." "You whispered. You cursed. You reacted." He tapped his notebook. "It takes what it can. It repeats what it likes. It tests. The rules aren't superstition. They're how you stop it from learning too fast." That landed hard because it made disgusting sense. The thing down there wasn't just haunting the basement. It was training itself on people. Harker opened the folder again and slid a different photo toward me. Old, yellowed at the edges. A guy in a property room uniform, smiling like he'd won a softball game, holding up a keyring for the camera. In the background, half behind a shelf, Lowell Piers, black pits for eyes, that same grin. "Do you recognize him?" Harker asked. I shook my head. "That was Manny Du Bois," Harker said. "Night custodian, 8 years ago. Thought the rules were hazing. Whistled while he worked because it kept him awake." I swallowed. My throat hurt. "What happened?" I asked. Harker held my gaze. He made it to the stairwell. The door wouldn't open. The intercom played him screaming, but he wasn't screaming yet. He heard himself screaming. He answered his own scream. Harker's voice stayed flat, but his fingers tightened on the folder. By the time day shift came in, they found his ID badge on the floor and a fresh Polaroid in locker 3. My stomach rolled. They didn't find his body. "No," Harker said. "We found him." He flipped the photo over and pushed it toward me. On the back, in thick black ink, 2 words. "In stock." My skin crawled. Harker pulled another Polaroid. A woman this time, early 20s, hair pulled back, uniform shirt too big. She looked tired. She looked like me in a mirror of bad decisions. She touched the camera, Harker said. My jaw clenched. Like I did. She didn't stop there, he said. She thought she could be clever. He leaned forward. She took it home. My stomach dropped. The note said. I know what the note said. He snapped the first crack in his control. She didn't. That note didn't exist yet. It got added after her. He inhaled through his nose and smoothed his face back into calm. She woke up to flashes at night. She started finding Polaroids on her kitchen table that she didn't remember taking. Pictures of her asleep. Pictures of her son asleep. Lowell in the corner of every frame. She came back here screaming that the basement followed her home. "What did you do?" I asked. Parker's eyes went cold. "We took the camera. We put it where it belonged. We did what you just watched me do." And her. He stared at the table for a beat, like he was measuring how honest to be. "Her son stayed," he said. "She didn't." The room went too quiet around his words. I felt my paper towels soak through again. Warm blood under the wrapper, sticky and wrong. "You're telling me the precinct keeps operating on top of this," I said, voice rising before I could tamp it down. "You're telling me you have a fucking system, and you still put new people down there with a locker note like it's a goddamn scavenger hunt." Parker didn't flinch. "It isn't new people," he said. "It's desperate people. People who take the shift because they need the money. People who take the shift because they think they can handle it. People who take the shift because they don't have a better option." That hit like a slap because he wasn't wrong, and I hated him for saying it. "I'm not doing it anymore," I said. "I'm done." Parker nodded, once like he'd already assumed. "Good." I blinked. "That's it? You're not going to threaten me? You're not going to tell me I signed something?" "You can quit," he said. "You can walk out right now. I won't stop you." He leaned closer. "But you can't take anything with you. That includes guilt. That includes curiosity. That includes the idea you can fix it by being brave." I didn't ask to be marked, he finished for me. He pointed at my wrapped hands. "You already are." I swallowed. "What does miscount mean?" Parker's expression tightened. "It's what it calls you when it's decided you don't add up." "That's not." "Inventory," he said. "It thinks in inventory." He tapped the folder again. Lowell started with evidence. Then he started with people. He didn't say it like folklore. He said it like a man describing mold in a building you can't afford to tear down. I wanted to argue. I wanted to throw the folder in his face. I wanted to say, then burn it. Flood the basement. Tear the shelves apart. Something loud and heroic. Instead, I asked the only question my fear could form. "Am I safe?" Parker's eyes held mine. "No," he said, "but you can be less interesting." "What does that mean?" "It means you obey," he said. "It means you don't feed it." My mouth went dry. "So what now?" Parker reached into the folder and pulled out a form. Not a confession, not a waiver, a standard incident report. He slid it toward me with a pen. "Write down everything," he said. "Times. What you saw, what you heard, what's said. Keep it blunt. Know that I'm cheat." I stared at him. "Why?" "You already know." He shook his head once. "We know patterns," he said. "We don't know you." That line made my skin prickle again, like my identity was a thing you could misplace in a room full of boxes. I took the pen with my wrapped hand, awkward. My palm screamed under the paper towel. The pen slipped. I tried again. The ink smeared. At the top of the report, under nature of incident, my hand paused. Without thinking, I wrote, "Miscount." I froze. My stomach went cold. Parker's eyes snapped to the paper. His voice went sharp. "Cross it out." My throat tightened. It just came out. "Cross it out," he repeated, slower, like he was talking to a bomb. I scratched a line through the word until the paper tore. The ink bled. The word was still readable underneath, like it didn't care. Parker exhaled through his nose. "Good," he said, but it wasn't praise. It was relief. "What happens if," I started, but the words clumped in my throat. He finished without me. "If you start writing what it wants." He tapped the notebook. "It gets easier for it. It gets faster." My pulse thudded. "So how do I stop it?" "You don't," Parker said. "You starve it." He sat back. "You go home. You sleep if you can. You set an alarm before 3:07, and you make sure you're not alone in the dark. You keep lights on if you have to. You don't whistle. You don't talk back to recordings. You don't open your photo albums and get sentimental." "In my hands." Parker leaned forward and peeled one corner of the paper towel away without warning. I flinched. The skin under was raw and pale, split and swollen. The letters weren't smeared away. They sat deeper now, dark in the cracks, like the skin itself had learned to hold ink. Miscount, miscount, miscount. Harker pressed the towel back down. Keep them wrapped, he said. If you see the word anywhere else, you tell me. If you find anything you didn't bring into your home, you don't touch it with bare skin. You bag it and you call. Call who? I asked. You? What number? Harker stared at me for a beat. Then he slid a business card across the table. No name, just a number and the word logistics. My stomach turned again, like even his identity was a thing kept in a locker. You're telling me I'm going to take this home anyway, I said, because my mouth needed to spit poison. Harker didn't argue. I'm telling you it already tried. The overhead light in the interview room flickered once. Harker's eyes cut up to it immediately, then back to me. What time is it? He asked. I checked the wall clock. 3:23. He nodded, like he'd been counting without looking. Okay, he said. We got past the worst of tonight. Worst? I echoed. That wasn't. Harker leaned closer again, voice low. It got the girl's picture back, he said. It said thank you. That means it's satisfied for now. For now. I repeated because the words tasted like rot. He stood. You're going to sit in the break room until dawn, he said. You're not going back down there. You're not leaving the building alone yet. The hell I'm not. I snapped, an anger flare because it was all I had left. Harker's gaze went flat. Do you want to walk into the dark outside with your hands, saying miscount? He asked. Or do you want a parking lot camera to catch you so it can catch you too? I stared at him. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. He didn't soften. Sit, he repeated. He walked me out to the break room and sat me at the scratch table under the stupid dog calendar. The gum pack was gone. I didn't know when it disappeared. That made my stomach twist harder than if it had been there. Harker placed my incident report on the table and held it down with his palm. Do not write on this again, he said. Then he slid a yellow Post-it out from under the folder. My Post-it. If you count them, they count you. He stuck it to the edge of the table where I could not see it. It wasn't in your locker earlier, I said, because my mind was trying to cling to details like they were handholds. Harker's eyes flicked toward the hallway. It moves, he said. It shows up where it wants. It's not for you. It's for the next one. And me? I asked. Harker looked at my hands again. You're already in the margins, he said. He left the break room without another word. I sat there under fluorescent hum and tried not to shake. The first hour crawled. Every sound in the precinct above felt like it belonged to another universe. A toilet flush, a chair squeak, a muffled laugh that died quickly, like someone remembered where they were. I stared at the Post-it until the letters blurred. I tried not to blink too slow. At one point, the vending machine made a soft mechanical click like it was about to drop something. My whole body went rigid. Nothing fell. I breathed again, slow, counting anyway, because counting was the only thing I had that felt like control. At 4:11, I heard a faint tap from somewhere beyond the break room door. Just one. Talp. I held my breath without thinking. Another tap. Talp. Not a pattern. A test. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood and waited for the 30 count, even though nobody was whistling, because my body didn't trust what sound would come next. The tapping stopped. When my breath came back, it came back shaky. At 4:36, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't recognize. A thumbnail preview like a photo had been taken. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. My hand shook as I fumbled it out of my pocket. No new photos saved. No notification. Just the battery now at 12% and the flashlight icon flickering like it couldn't decide to exist. I looked up at the security camera in the corner of the break room. The little red that was steady. Watching. I forced myself not to wave at it, not to flip it off, not to do anything that acknowledged it could be more than a camera. At 5:02 a.m., Deputy walked past the break room door and glanced in. His eyes slid over me in a way like I was a stray dog. He didn't stop. Nobody wanted to know. At 5:40, the overhead light in the break room popped softly, just a quick stutter, and my heart tried to climb out of my throat. Then it steadied again. At 6:15, dawn started to creep into the upstairs windows through the hallway outside, pale and indifferent. The shift change noise began. Doors opening, voices, keys, the building pretending it was normal. Harker came back. He looked a little more human in daylight, which somehow made him worse, like this nightmare could wear a normal man's face. He put a fresh roll of gauze on the table. "Wrap your hands properly," he said. "Then you're going to go to HR and you're going to quit." I stared at him. "HR isn't open yet." "It will be," he said. "And if I don't want to quit?" I asked because I needed to hear myself say the opposite just to prove I had a choice. Harker's eyes hardened. "Then it'll count you," he said. "And the next time we open locker 3, you'll be in there in pieces of paper." I swallowed hard. So it really stores people. Harker didn't answer with words. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out a Polaroid that wasn't in the folder. He placed it face up on the table between us. It showed a shelf aisle. Not my angle. Low, like the camera was on the ground. A pair of boots in the foreground, toes pointed inward like someone standing stiff. In the background, a set of hands pressed against the inside of something transparent, fingers spread, mouth open in a silent scream. The hands weren't flesh. They were made of photo paper. I felt my stomach heave. I slapped my hand over my mouth before sound could come out. Harker took the photo back and slid it into his pocket like it was a receipt. "Quit," he said again, softer, but that softness wasn't kindness. It was exhaustion. "Why keep it here?" I asked through my fingers. "Why not move it? Burn it? Destroy the whole basement?" Harker's jaw clenched. "You can't move it," he said. "It isn't an object. It's a habit." "That's bullshit." He leaned forward, voice low. "Lowell Pierce didn't just die," he said. "He put himself in the system. In the intercom. In the shelves. In the paperwork. In the fucking way this place keeps records." My blood ran cold. "So if you destroy the shelves, find another shelf," he said. "If you kill the intercom, it learns your phone. If you flood the basement, it likes the wet. You don't win by fighting it. You win by not feeding it new ways to talk." My throat tightened. "So all you can do is manage it." Harker's eyes flicked to the post-it on the table. "If you count them, they count you." "Damage control," he said. I wrapped my hands with the gauze like my skin was trying to crawl off the bones. The pressure helped a little, not with the pain, with the feeling of being exposed. Then Harker walked me to the front desk. People stared the way people stare at someone coming out of an ER. Quick glances, fast lookaways. That not my problem face. I wanted to grab one of them by the shoulders and shake them until their teeth rattled. "Do you know what's under you? Do you know what's happening in your building?" Instead, I kept my head down and followed Harker like a prisoner. HR was open by the time we got there because Harker made it open. A woman behind a desk looked at him, then at me, then at my gauze-wrapped hands, and her expression tightened like she'd swallowed a lemon. She slid papers across the desk without making eye contact. "You're resigning effective immediately?" she asked, but it wasn't really a question. It was a script. "Yes," I said. My pen hovered over the signature line. The paper in front of me had a list of checkboxes. Return keys, return equipment, exit interview scheduled, and one box at the bottom, like an afterthought. Property room inventory acknowledgement. My throat went tight. "What is that?" I asked, voice too sharp. The HR woman blinked. "It's standard," she said quickly. "It just..." Harker's hand landed on the paper, covering the checkbox. He leaned in. His voice stayed polite, but his eyes weren't. "Not that," he said. The woman swallowed. "Right," she said, and her hand shook as she used whiteout over the line like she wanted it gone from existence. "Right. Saw the..." "Isterte her." Standard, I repeated, bitter. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Harker nudged the pen toward me. "Sign," he said. I signed, and the second my name hit the paper, the overhead light in the HR office flickered. Not a gentle flicker. A flash. White burst. Instant caméra flash. The woman gasped. Harker didn't. He didn't even blink. He just covered my hands with his palm like he was stopping me from reaching for something. "Don't look around," he murmured, so low only I could hear. My eyes wanted to whip to the corners, to the hallway, to the security camera in the ceiling. I stared at the paper instead until my vision blurred. The flash left a starburst spot in my sight that pulsed like an afterimage. When the light settled, the HR woman's face was white as copy paper. "Was that?" she started. Harker cut her off. "Printer," he said coldly. "There isn't." "Printer," he repeated, and she shut up. He walked me out of HR like he was escorting a witness out of crime scene. At the front doors, daylight hit my face like a slap. The sun didn't feel warm. It felt like a spotlight, like the world was exposing me. Harker stopped at the threshold. "You got a kid," he said. I stared at him. "Yeah." "Don't tell him," he said. "I'm not going to." "Don't even joke about it around him," Harker said. "Don't let him hear you whistle. Don't teach him to count to 30 like it's a game." My stomach tightened. "Why?" Harker's eyes stayed on mine. "Because it listens," he said, "and because it likes new voices." My mouth went dry. "So this is it?" I asked. "I just go home and hope it forgets me?" Harker's gaze flicked to my wrapped hands again. "It won't forget you," he said, "but you can make it bored." "How?" I asked. He held up a finger. 1, don't answer it. Another finger. 2, don't accept anything. A third. 3, don't go looking. I laughed once bitter. "That's your whole plan? Don't look at the monster." "That's the only plan that's kept anyone alive," Harker said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the spiral notebook, and tore out a page. He wrote something on it fast and shoved it into my shirt pocket. "Don't unfold that unless you absolutely have to," he said. "What is it?" I asked, already feeling the paper like it was hot. "It's what to do if you wake up wet," he said. My blood ran cold. "What the fuck does that mean?" Harker's eyes didn't blink. "If you wake up and your sheets are damp like someone spilled water," he said, voice flat, "and you don't remember spilling it, don't look for the source. Don't go to the bathroom mirror. Don't check your phone. Follow the page." I stared at him, horror rising like vomit. Harker stepped back. "Go," he said. I wanted to say something heroic, something defiant, something like "you can't follow me." Instead, I nodded because my throat didn't work and walked out into the parking lot like a man leaving a funeral. My car smelled normal. Stale coffee, old fast food, a faint citrus air freshener hanging crooked from the mirror. Normal smelled like a trick. I got in and sat there with my hands on the wheel, gauze squeaking against leather, and I waited for something to happen because my body didn't believe nothing happened anymore. Nothing happened. That was worse. I drove home on autopilot. The city looked the same. People walked dogs. People carried coffee cups. A guy jogged with headphones in, unaware of anything under anyone else's feet. At a red light, I caught myself staring at the rearview mirror too long, half expecting to see a man with black pit eyes smiling in the back seat. I forced my gaze back to the road. My mouth tasted like blood and metal and stale fear. When I got to my apartment, my building's lobby smelled like someone's curry dinner and laundry detergent. I rode the elevator up with a woman I'd seen before but never spoken to. She glanced at my bandaged hands and then stared at the floor like politeness could keep her safe from whatever my injuries implied. I unlocked my door. The deadbolt turned too smoothly, like someone had oiled it. My skin prickled. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me fast, locking it twice like locks meant anything if something could learn your voice through an intercom. The apartment was quiet. Not basement quiet. Apartment quiet. Refrigerator hum. Distant traffic. A neighbor's TV faint through the wall. I stood there with my shoes still on and listened. No tapping. No whistling. My chest stayed tight anyway, like it didn't trust silence anymore. I peeled the gauze back in the kitchen because I needed to see. I needed to confirm I wasn't insane. The skin of my palms was raw and cracked, red in the creases. And the letters. Miscount. 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 They were darker now. I turned my hands under the light. The words didn't smear. They didn't move. They just sat there like tattoos. My stomach twisted. I went to the bathroom sink and ran hot water like Harker said. I scrubbed until my palms bled again. The pain wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was watching the letters stay. Like they weren't on top of the skin. Like they were underneath. I wrapped my hands again and sat on my couch staring at my black TV screen like it might turn on by itself and show me a Polaroid of my own face. Hours passed without me sleeping. My eyes burned. My body felt too heavy and too light at once. At some point, my phone buzzed. A text from my ex. "You're picking him up tomorrow at 4. Don't be late." Normal life stabbing into my chest like a dull knife. I stared at the message until the words stopped looking like words. Then my phone's camera flash went off. Bright, violent, a clean white burst in my dim living room. No shutter sound, no click, just a flash like a blink from a thing that didn't have eyelids. My breath locked in my chest. I grabbed the phone with both hands and nearly dropped it because my palms were still slick with sweat. No new photos, no notification, no evidence it happened except the afterimage burning behind my eyes. My apartment felt suddenly too small. I wanted to run into the hallway and bang on a neighbor's door and drag them inside and say, "Do you see this? Tell me I'm not losing it." Instead, I sat very still and listened for whistling. Nothing. I didn't realize I was counting until I hit 30 and my lungs started working again. Night came again like it always does, rude and automatic. The sun set. The shadows in my apartment got longer. The world outside quieted down. I kept lights on. All of them. Kitchen, bathroom, hallway, even the stupid little lamp by the couch. Electricity be damned. I'd pay any bill not to sit in dark. I tried to distract myself. I put on a show and didn't hear a word of it. I ate crackers and they turned to dust in my mouth. I stood at my window and watched cars move like tiny bugs. At 2:50 a.m., I realized I'd been waiting for time. Waiting the way you wait for a toothache to hit once you've thought about it. My heart started pounding before anything happened, like it wanted to get a head start on fear. At 3:06, I stood in the middle of my living room with my phone in my hand, and every light on and my jaw clenched so tight it ached. At 3:07, my hallway outside my apartment door went quiet. Not the building's quiet. A carved-out quiet like someone had scooped the sound away. Then my voice spoke from the other side of my door. Not through a speaker, not through my phone, not through the TV. Just my voice in the dark hallway, close to the wood. "You're doing so good," it said. My whole body went cold. My skin prickled like it was trying to crawl away. The knob on my door didn't turn. It didn't need to. My voice spoke again, softer, coaxing. "Just open up," it said. "I just want to see you. I just want to count." I pressed my back to the opposite wall like distance mattered. I did not answer. My tongue wanted to shape words so badly it hurt. A scream, a curse, a demand. Anything. Rule 5. Don't correct it. If you speak during the recording, you'll teach it your voice. My throat clenched so tight it felt like I was swallowing glass. Outside the door, my voice chuckled. Not my real laugh. Something trying to imitate it. "Okay," it said. "Okay, we can wait." Then, very soft like a joke shared between friends, it added, "Don't look up." My breath hitched. The same words from the back of the Polaroid. I stared at the ceiling without thinking, like my brain wanted to rebel by doing the exact thing it was told not to. I forced my eyes down. I didn't realize my hands were shaking until the gauze squeaked against itself. In the hallway, something tapped against my door. Light, polite, top, top, top. I clamped my teeth on my tongue until I tasted blood and held my breath because Rule 1 didn't just apply to whistling anymore. It applied to anything that sounded playful. The tapping stopped. Silence flooded back in. Normal building silence this time. An elevator cable groaning somewhere, a neighbor coughing, plumbing settling. I let my breath out slow, like I was disarming myself. I stood there for a long time, eyes on the door, waiting for my own voice to come back. It didn't. By morning, I looked like a corpse that had kept moving out of spite. I picked my kid up at 4 like my ex demanded. I smiled like a normal dad. I made jokes. I ordered pizza. I kept my hands in my pockets as much as I could because I didn't want him asking why they were wrapped. He whistled once while playing a game on his tablet, some dumb little tune. My blood went cold so fast, I almost dropped the pizza box. "Hey," I said too sharply. He flinched. "What?" "Don't whistle," I said, and my voice cracked on it like it was a threat. He stared at me, confused. "What?" "Because you'll teach it. Because it likes new voices. Because it's listening." I swallowed it all down and forced a calmer tone. "Just don't," I said. "It bugs me." He shrugged and went back to his game. I spent the rest of the night watching him like the room was full of cameras. That's when I learned the worst part. The basement didn't just want me when I was alone. It wanted to be present when I loved something. A week passed. Then two. The letters on my palms faded a little, not gone, but less angry, like bruises turning yellow. I started sleeping in chunks. I started turning off one light at a time, like a man testing water with his toe. I tried to pretend it had loosened its grip. Then one afternoon, my ex dropped off a bag of my old stuff she'd found in a closet. "Take it," she snapped. "I'm not storing your garbage." I carried the bag inside and dumped it on my living room floor. Old hoodies, a broken watch, a couple paperback books, a shoebox of photos. I stared at the shoebox like it was a bomb. I hadn't thought about old photos in weeks because I'd been too busy surviving the next minute. The note in my locker had been clear: don't look at old photos of yourself. I should have shoved the shoebox back in the bag and thrown it in the trash outside. Instead, I stood there with it in front of me because curiosity doesn't die. It just goes quiet and waits. I told myself I'd just check for something obvious, to see if there were any Polaroids, just make sure nothing had been planted. I lifted the lid. Inside were normal printed photos, birthday parties, my kid as a toddler with frosting on his face, me and my ex before we hated each other, smiling like we didn't know what was coming. My chest tightened with that stupid, soft grief you get when you see a past version of yourself who thought life was going to be okay. My fingers trembled over the top photo. I almost put it back. Then my phone camera flashed in my pocket. Bright burst, like a slap. I yanked the phone out. No photo saved. No notification. Just that after image burned into my eyes. And in that burned-in spot, like my brain couldn't let it go, I saw the man with the camera smiling. I threw the shoebox lid back down, so hard it cracked at the corner. My heart hammered. My hands shook so hard the gauze slid. I sat on the floor, back against the couch, breathing like I'd run miles. Then something under the shoebox scraped softly against the hardwood. Paper sliding. My stomach went ice cold. I didn't move for a full minute. I didn't breathe right. I listened with my whole body. No tapping. No whistling. I reached out with shaking fingers and slid the shoebox aside. A yellow post, it was stuck to the floor. Fresh. Bright yellow like it had just come off a pad. Same blocky handwriting. If you count them, they count you. Underneath it, in smaller writing. Stop checking. My throat made a sound that wasn't a scream, but wanted to be. I bit it off. I didn't touch the post-it. I didn't peel it up. I didn't know if bare skin mattered with paper, but after what happened with the wet bag, I didn't trust anything that could hold ink. I grabbed a plastic grocery bag from the kitchen, slid it over my hand like a glove, and lifted the post-it by the corner. It came up too easily, like it had never really been stuck. Under was a damp spot on the wood. My apartment smelled faintly of pennies. I bagged the post-it, sealed it with tape, and shoved it into the back of my closet like I could hide it from a thing that lived in inventory. That night at 3:07 my voice came again, but quieter, almost disappointed. "You were supposed to look," it whispered. I didn't answer. The next morning I called Harker. He picked up on the second ring like he'd been holding the phone. "You opened photos," he said before I could speak. My blood went cold. "How the hell do you?" "Did you accept anything?" he cut in. I didn't, I swallowed. "I found a post-it." Silence on the line for half a second. "Bag it," he said. "Already did." "Good," he said, and I could hear something like relief, thin and worn. "Listen to me. The more you check, the more it can show you what it wants you to see. That's how it gets you. It turns your life into a property room." My mouth went dry. It flashed when I opened the box. "I know," he said. "You know because because it does the same damn thing every time, Harker said, and his voice sharpened with anger, not at me, but at the pattern, because it likes the feeling of you wanting to prove you're not crazy. I swallowed. What happens if it counts me? Harker didn't answer immediately. I could hear him breathing. People disappear, he said finally, and everyone else convinces themselves they quit, or moved, or died somewhere else. The system doesn't like missing items. It corrects the record. The words made my skin crawl. Is there a way to erase the mark? I asked, even though I already knew the answer by the way he'd paused. No, he said, but it fades if you stop feeding it. My throat tightened, so I just live like this. Like a man who doesn't whistle, he said. Like a man who doesn't look at old photos. Like a man who doesn't go back to the place that wants to catalog him. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I shouldn't have to live small because a dead piece of shit named Lowell Pierce built himself a nest in police procedure. But I heard my kid in the next room laughing at a cartoon, and the sound cut through my pride like a knife. Okay, I said. Okay, Harker echoed, and it sounded like he'd heard that word from a lot of scared people. If it flashes again, don't chase it. If you hear your voice, don't answer. If you find anything what you didn't make wet, don't try to clean it first. Bag it and call. Yeah, I whispered. And if you ever feel the urge to go back, Harker added, quieter, remember what it called you. Miscount. I hung up and stood in my kitchen staring at my hands until my vision swam. I never went back to the precinct after that. Not to visit. Not to pick up a forgotten paycheck. Not to prove to myself I could. I took a warehouse job with worse hours and better silence. I paid my bills. I kept my head down. I did my best to be boring. But here's the part that keeps me awake. The part one don't tell people because they'll either laugh or look at me like I'm contagious. Every once in a while, my phone camera flashes on its own when I'm sitting in the dark. No notification. No photo saved. Just a flash like a blink. And at 3:07 a.m., if my apartment is quiet enough, I hear my own voice from the hallway outside my bedroom door. Not through a speaker, not through a device. Just my voice in the dark, saying something I didn't say. You're doing so good. I keep my mouth shut. I don't whistle. And I don't, under any circumstances, look at old photos of myself. Because I already know what I'll see in the background, smiling, holding the camera, waiting for me to teach it one more word.